Welcome back. We're glad you're still with us here on Morning at NTV. We're coming to you live from the Kampala Serena Conference Center. And if you're just joining us, this is the Kickstarter segment. And today we shall be looking at events in the Democratic Republic of Congo in light of the expulsion of extra forces in the vast country. We shall also be looking later at the role of the Uganda People's Defense Forces as tasked in the eviction of Balalo in northern Uganda. That will be coming up a little bit later. We shall be joined by the spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense and the Uganda People's Defense Forces, that is Brigadier General Felix Kulayigye, a little later. But in studio right now, I have with me Dr. Tolit Atiya. He's a security analyst who will be helping us understand the dynamics in the region with regard to the military intervention by the East African Community Regional Force in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The Ugandan military began the withdrawal of about 1,000 troops who've been deployed for a regional peacekeeping mission in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. That exit of the UPDF follows Kinshasa's decision not to extend the mandate of the East African Community Regional Force beyond December the 8th, according to a statement that was issued on a Friday. Subsequently, the planning and execution of that mandate is underway. Let me first understand, Dr. Atiya, there's a lot that is going on in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the politics, the insecurity, the business, and many times if you are not very keen on understanding the greater picture or how everything plays out in this very embattled part of Africa, you could lose a track of exactly what the issue is at any one point in time. For now, we are seeing what appears to be a total collapse of the regional security architecture as put together by the East African community in a bid to restore security in this region, but most importantly, secure the greater good of the region. When on Friday the statement was issued by Kinshasa about the expulsion and the fact that they will not be extending the mandate beyond December the 8th, what came to your mind at that point in time? You've laughed at it.
Again, I'm glad to be here and good morning, the viewers. You've raised a couple of points.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing is that you'd like me to put a context to this conflict. Of course, we know that Congo basically is the flashpoint of Africa. And I have seen some illustrators, I have seen some very interesting illustrations. The map of Africa is tilted to look like a gun. And Congo, where Congo lies, is actually the trigger. And I think there are reasons for that. But of course, what is going on in Congo, to me, did not surprise me. The issue, this issue of Kinshasa turning around. And I have said this in these studios before. I'm not just a pessimist, but the writing has been on the wall that Congo is certainly deeply afflicted and conflicted. Congo, which happens to be our neighbor, creates a very difficult geopolitical equation for its neighbors. And I would want to say it clearly here that Congo has its own share of blame, but the neighbors as well. But it would be very difficult for anybody to understand, for instance, why why Kinshasa decides, to say enough is enough, without somebody looking at the greater picture. And what is this greater picture? You need to look at the peace and security architecture from an Africa perspective. Look at the AU. Because the formation of the East Africa, reaction force is a good idea. It has its merits. And one of the immediate merits to it is that since the revival of the AU, these regional bodies, not only East Africa, we know about ECOWAS that has been very active. There is SADC. There is one, the acronym is a bit twisted between the Sahel and the Arab, But all of them are struggling with this one major component. You see, and maybe before I say that, let me mention the two advantages. One is that certainly Africa needs its own solutions to the conflicts going on. Look at, say, West Africa. In the last probably 12 years or 10 years of the AU's revival, we have already seen about 6 coups, If you look at the Lomé Convention of 2000, one of the key elements or the key principles that saw the emergence of a reformed AU was basically the issue of having a much more peaceful and economically viable Africa. Because we know that this is like a second reincarnation for Africa. This is another opportunity for Africa after the elements of colonization, and then particularly the collapse of the Soviet, which at the time had given an opportunity for a lot of proxy wars. After the collapse of the Soviet, we thought it would be over with these proxy wars, and we have a slightly much more peaceful continent that then can economically grow and develop.
Become viable.
Yeah, but we are not seeing that. And why? My thinking is this, or my reading is this. One, just like the challenges of the AU, which I said mirrors the challenges of all these other regional bodies, East Africa, SADC, and all this, are particularly 3 or 4 things. One is that the architecture is shy of the issues of governance. We know that Congo's biggest challenge is governance. So it forces, the members in this theater oftentimes, to follow some kind of script that was written a long time ago and oftentimes is out of time with the realities. Besides the governance issue, is that these bodies tend to be reactive and not proactive. So they cannot nip in the bud some of these underlying issues. So we tend to deal with symptomatic issues and not the underlying causes of these conflicts, because these conflicts have both a push and pull factor. The other issue is geopolitical interests, like the East Africa thing. I mentioned it here before. We went into Congo. Uganda went to Congo for its pertinent reasons, and we know them. And they have not been shy. We said we are going into Congo. We requested to go into Congo with the view that we're going to root out the ADF. How much we've achieved that, I do not know. The other issue is that are these countries able, to work in cohesion? The fact that Uganda has its own interests, Rwanda had its own interests, Kenya has its own interests, you find that defining the objective then becomes a problem, Now, if you cannot afford to have a cohesion for a mission like this one, then it definitely becomes problematic. And then, of course, the other very last bit is something that has been with us. The question of the global players, the element of neoliberalism still lives with us, and we are struggling with it. France still is deeply rooted in the Congo. The Belgians are rooted in the Congo. You know, so the question is, we need to get back to self-reflection and ask ourselves, as African states, the AU as it is, because the other question also is investment, because war is expensive.
Very expensive.
You know.
But also very profitable.
War is expensive, and we are in there.
Yeah.
Can we afford it? You know, there's one thing to say, you can posture. But can we afford it? We know that the AU was actually revived with almost the sole help of the EU plus the G8. Are we at a point where we say we are fairly self-sufficient?
All right.
You know, so all these are challenges.
Dr. Atiya, what I pick from your submission is that in trying to understand one issue, we often fall into the traps of misunderstanding another and then completely getting the whole picture wrong. But the DRC over the last 30 years has become a thorn in Uganda's side. And I'm glad we now have the spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense and Uganda People's Defense Forces, Brigadier General Felix Kulayigye.
That's prophetic.
Yes, he's definitely, you getting there.
You're most welcome.
And it's our prayer, you get there.
Thank you for making time. Yeah, we're trying to understand the latest developments in the Democratic Republic of Congo. On Friday, a statement was issued that the mandate of the East African Community Regional Force would not be extended, and Kinshasa has its reasons why that doesn't want that to happen. But the going into the Democratic Republic of Congo, of the East African community, within the aegis of the force, was meant to bring an end to the multiplicity of conflicts and misunderstandings within especially the rebel and militia groups that seem to have backing from other interested parties within the Democratic Republic of Congo. News of this must have upset the Uganda People's Defense Forces, or Uganda, to be specific, didn't it?
No, I think it's not upsetting as such, but a disappointment.
Okay.
Because really we have wasted time and resources. We deployed. But when we deployed, what was supposed to be the condition on the ground? A ceasefire, withdraw from positions, and then start a political process. There was a partial withdrawal on the part of M23. But the FRDC, plus its allies, mark you, this is a government army, and we are talking of allies within the same state.
Within the same state.
That already signals your problem. Because what was the intention of the EAC heads of states summit? It was, one, once you separate the protagonists, then you start a process. Because war is not an end. War is a means to an end. And war should be the last resort. You resort to war because you have failed to agree over what you call irreconcilable differences. But what are there that are irreconcilable between citizens? So the mandate ended prematurely, if I may say, because the DRC government was not satisfied with what we were doing. For them, they expected the EAC force to fight M23. And it is the conviction of the EAC regional leaders that the issue is not getting rid of M23. The issue is listening to their grievances and address them politically. because they are nationals of Congo, they are not foreigners. Now, what I'm reading from His Excellency Shekedi when he was in Bukavu 2 days ago, he's accusing a neighboring country of being the one fighting instead of M23. Okay? But you have also heard the sounds from Kinshasa and elsewhere that M23 should go away. And the question is, go to where? Because these are bona fide citizens of DRC. They are victims like colonialism, like the rest of us. 3, there are almost 100 and something militia groups in DRC.
So in fact, putting numbers to it is a dead end in itself.
It's a dead end in itself, thank you very much.
It's a cocktail of militias.
Absolutely. Already, the government forces are allying with Wazalendo, one of the groups, allying with FDLR, the Rwandese former Interahamwe, or Interahamwe as you want to call them. So that's already is a problem. Because if you are working with local militia groups and you are talking of dealing with another one, you are simply postponing a problem.
Before you continue, General, at the root of all this is a misunderstanding of the problem for everybody and who should intervene at what point and how. For example, Uganda People's Defense Forces and Uganda, for that matter, is in the DRC on 2 fronts. As UPDF, tackling the threat of the ADF, that is independent of its...
And it's bilateral.
It's bilateral.
With
and that is different from the understanding within the auspices of the EAC regional force,
Correct.
which also has UPDF.
Correct.
So we are dealing with 2 issues. The Kinshasa government is okay with UPDF on a bilateral basis to pursue the ADF, and that is not under question.
No.
So UPDF should withdraw from the DRC as EAC and stay in the DRC as UPDF pursuing ADF.
Correct.
Wow.
We are actually withdrawing already from the EAC positions.
Okay.
Our Kenyan counterparts left a week ago, even before the expiry of the mandate.
The Burundi compatriots too?
Yes. Now, so once it was agreed, once Congo declared that the mandate won't be renewed, then the heads of states directed the CDFs to meet their counterparts from SADC, which is the preferred force from by Kinshasa, to agree on the modus of withdrawal and taking over positions.
Yeah.
Now, so once that decision was taken, we were given directives, and effective yesterday but 1, which was Sunday, our forces began pulling it back to Bunagana and eventually to Kisoro.
Okay.
Now, North, which is in Ituri province now, because that is the North Kivu. Now in Ituri province, the operations are going on against ADF. They are not in question or debate on this matter.
They are not. It's not even an issue that raises concern.
Not at all.
For Kinshasa.
Not at all.
Dr. Tolit, if you are an outsider joining this conversation, right there is where you would completely get confused.
Why?
But shouldn't we, for example, listen to the President of the Democratic Republic of Congo when he voices concerns about foreign elements being critical backers of these militias? And
I thought I wanted to supplement,
quickly,
to complement what Dr. Tolit was talking about when I was coming, because it's critical. The geopolitics of this region is critical. The role of international players in DRC is critical.
The mineral question is...
The mineral question.
The elephant question in the room that...
The resource question.
Yeah.
Which is not new. It's not yesterday.
It's not yesterday.
It is
as old as...
It's as old as about 2 centuries now. All right? And the people who have been rooting Congo for ages are still there. And one thing which is very critical about international actors vis-a-vis resources is that any new entrant is seen as the problem.
Mm.
You are coming to upset the balance.
Okay.
Okay? 2, the region itself. You see, something we must never forget is about the conflict scenario in the entire region. You have 3 conflict systems that are feeding onto each other in this region. Horn of Africa conflict system, the Sudan conflict system, the Great Lakes conflict system. Now, if you don't solve all of them at a go, you will still continue being in conflict because they keep on feeding onto each other.
Is that even possible, solving all of them at a go? Or is it even possible that there are elements who actually want to solve any one of those conflicts?
There are elements who would wish to solve. I can speak for Uganda confidently, because a conflict is never good for you. You can see we are hosting almost
until it's not good for you.
We are hosting almost 2 million refugees. The biggest number is from DRC and South Sudan. Now these 2 countries are at conflict for ages. Until when? So if Uganda, you want to put your resources where you want them to go, you need to solve the problems around you. But you cannot unless the owners of these problems, if I may use the word owners, are willing to sit together.
Let me seek your submission and on the aspect of whether the regional players who are actually interested in finding solutions to the conflict might want to pay attention and cut some slack for President Tshisekedi on the issues that he's raising. Because he seems to have, we don't know whether we are supposed to put him on the spot to provide evidence, but he keeps relating this to the fact that there are other players who are acting on, or rather in support of the forces that are destabilizing the country.
Yeah, you see, in analyzing politics sometimes, just as war, there is the issue of attitude. You need to know the attitudes of the players. I mean, it would be an interesting question. Who is the man, Tshisekedi? It would be good to understand him. We know that he's largely riding on the profile of his father. The father had an illustrious career. We actually know the father more than we know the son. And I think for me that is that's the point of departure. I agree very much with the Brigadier General and his submissions. But I think a little more that needs to be done, and probably that is also the challenge, especially for the politics in the geopolitical region. We have tended to, you know, there's what they call, you know, it's like if you go to a public place, you know, a restaurant and all that, and with its own setup, you arguably, the natural thing is that you're supposed to purchase things from there. But sometimes you want 1 or 2, 3 additions that may not be there. So you need to negotiate, you know, with the owners to give you what they call a coquette. Now, I think the coquette in this geopolitics equation is going beyond an arm shake. For instance, Uganda has serious reasons to be in the Congo. Because certainly we need to secure our back. But remember, there is that territorial challenge, you know, especially after the Vienna. Once we had nation states built, then we had this big question of sovereignty. And that is a question that the AU is struggling with up to today. So we hardly know the man, Tshisekedi. Yeah? For me, the question would be, and it's not only for the leaders, the political leaders in government. It goes to the other branches of government, including we in the academia. For instance, we are churning out a lot of work, you know, but who is utilizing this work? Tshisekedi came in the stature of his father. He came as a negotiated position for the departure of Joseph Kabila. Tshisekedi as a man is both conflicted and afflicted himself, because he spent more time trying to throw off the slough, you know, like a snake that removes. He's trying to throw off the slough of José Kabila. Kabila, for every intended purpose, you can't be a former president and anybody thinks, you know, you are no longer just part, you can just be dropped off, you know,
Africa,
or wished away.
I want to ask you, in all these things that have been going on, all the framers, the planners, maybe I do not know, but has Kabila come to this country at all?
No.
Huh? No. So who are we talking to? Who are the principals we are talking to? The army has a very clear structure. You had the brigadier generals telling you the CDFs met, you know, who met. They have clear platforms. But beyond those platforms, there is the politics. Yeah? He clearly said war is just a means. It's not an end in itself. So the lip service.
In other words, what you're saying, there is an absence, and it's a glaring absence.
The proactiveness.
Of the political actors within the Democratic Republic of Congo to come to the fore,
the depth,
and be seen to negotiate or to talk.
Absolutely. Peace. The depth it deserves. Because you see,
how viable is that approach right now? Who in the Democratic Republic of Congo, be it a former president, a former minister, or an opinion leader, can actually start the process of, you know, seeking common ground? Either they are respected enough or believed to be with good interest enough.
Can I tell you honestly?
And maybe Brigadier General, just before you, let me just give you information, which I know you already have. You know that there are elections going on in the Congo right now.
That's where I was going.
So, this could even just be a political wave.
Yes.
Posturing.
Yes.
It becomes very difficult. Huh? That's why I said that to me, be honest to you guys. At a time of electioneering, you do not discuss serious issues like peace. Because people are gesturing.
True.
People are gesturing.
This is when the job of being a moderator is really hard. And you wonder why you have this discussion on the table.
No, but matters must be discussed.
Yeah.
Frankly, to me, the fact that the matter is being discussed in the region, is positive.
That's right.
But more positive would be if internally there was more such a discussion among us, the political actors. Because frankly, you are talking of an election. But I want to guarantee you that there are places in DRC there want to be election. One, security. The other is infrastructure.
There isn't anything
called a road. And so, however much the Electoral Commission would have wished to have these people vote, they can't reach them. I mean, these are the stark realities we are dealing with. 3, there are people who have never seen a blackboard. They don't know what voting is called. Or what you call voting, rather. So,
actually, the joke is always that there are people in Congo, and I know this because I have been deep in Congo in so many locations doing my studies. There are people in Congo who have been on an aeroplane and have never
stepped to the vehicle.
I've never been in a vehicle or seen a car
in this continent.
But they've boarded.
They have boarded the plane.
They use planes as means.
They are airports.
Great. Now that leads us to the question that perhaps the problems of Africa are well crafted and scripted in the global capitals of the world. The mineral question in the Democratic Republic of Congo is pretty much the cause of just about everything. Shouldn't we focus attention to talking to executives in New York, London, the men and women who are responsible for the financial and resource architecture that the Democratic Republic runs on? Because that could be the solution. Instead of posturing as politicians and regional leaders like you're attempting to solve a problem that you know cannot be solved by you.
Mr. Again, you want to tell me how to discuss with the thief how to enforce security of your house? Can we wake up to the reality?
So
that
how
these
can
guys
we,
are exploiting resources, not only cheaply, freely.
freely?
This is the whole equation. They are accessing resources without anybody touching their hand. And you want to discuss with them how they should stop stealing from you?
So where should African leaders begin to act? Because unlike Chris Higenyi,
Yes.
unlike Dr. Tolit, unlike Brigadier General Kulayigye, African leaders understand the muscle that these powers and actors are impressing upon the Democratic Republic.
That's correct.
But then to continue to pretend to the African population that you are attempting to solve a problem for which you know exactly what is behind the scenes, why are we moving like that?
I have an answer for you. Pretending is one thing, and I agree with you on that one. Because there are occasions we have not been genuine to each other.
Because we need to be genuine, especially on the DRC.
Inevitably.
Yeah.
But you sit on a table, all right? You think you're going to solve a problem, but one of you or two of you have hidden interests they are not declaring on the subject matter. There's no genuineness there. That's number one. Number two, if there was a consensus, first of all, within DRC itself, okay? That's the starting point. National consciousness, to me, is step number one. Before even you go to the region or the AU.
How do you achieve national consciousness? You've just told me there are people in the Democratic Republic of Congo who have never seen a blackboard, who cannot understand the concept of education. How do you infuse national consciousness?
Who even don't know what their problem is. You know, there's being aware of yourself. But being aware of your environment is another one.
It's another one.
Okay? And they have been kept in that position. One, by the Belgians who colonized them. Two, by Mobutu himself for 30 years. They had a veil on their eyes. Now, three, Mobutu goes, a proliferation of different groups emerges. The region gets seen because the region was not involved before.
Before that, yeah.
And as a result, therefore, you have a conglomeration of problems that even the Congolese leaders themselves find difficult to think where to start from. But like I told you, you know, you start with an atom, then a molecule. There must be a starting point, inevitably. Otherwise, we shall just put up our hands and give up. And that's not the way to go. Because, check it, beat epidemics when they come, they start from DRC. Beat conflicts, they start from DRC. You have a group calling itself M18, west of Nebi.
M18.
M18.
In the Mahagi region.
In the Mahagi region. Then you have the Mai Mai. You have the group which is fighting the Burundi government. Then you have FDLR. Then internally you have their own groups. So in the end, to deal with this, you must start with strengthening the state. Me, I'm state-centric. I have no apology on it.
Talking of strengthening the state, that calls for approaches to governance that are, first of all, practical and sustainable. You've said you've conducted studies deep into the Democratic Republic of Congo. Do you mean the vast East or the Congo in its entirety? Because we see or get reports on security situation in the vast east of the Democratic Republic of Congo. But we know there are areas like Lubumbashi, there are areas that have thrived and seem like the mineral trade is going on. There is no conflict that is measured to be reported about. Is there a different form of governance system that is working for the western part of the Democratic Republic of Congo that is not operational in the east of that vast nation?
No, I think to put it in context, the entire Congo is in conflict. The issue is that if you're looking at a time quantum and you're looking at the types of conflicts, then they differ.
Okay.
For instance, arising from the resource question and the unresolved political, historical challenges of the Congo. There's a conflict in the entire Congo, whether it's Katanga region, whether it is Oriental, whether it is the East, the Kivus, the North Node, the North Node and the South Node. All these. The variation is at what stage of the conflict. The only oasis seems to be Kinshasa. And there, largely, it is what you'd call forced peace. It's only holding because it is a melting pot of interests. Those who control the levers of conflict would not want Kinshasa to be to ebb inside, because you have the airport, because you want the minerals. Where do you pass to take them away, and all that? So there is that oasis of peace. But otherwise, for instance, in these elections, the man who is probably posing the strongest challenge to Tshisekedi is Katumbi. Moise Katumbi. He's German. His boy is a mixed race of German and Congolese origin. In stature, he was he's the owner of TP Mazembe and all this and all this. He's such an illustrious guy. They are fortune, fortune poll takers who actually say he's probably as rich as that country. But you know what happened to him? Just a few years ago, over trapped-up charges, he was actually arraigned, to court in absentia and charged for stealing, extorting money, I think less than $10,000 or something, which is laughable. But that gives you the picture of the inside of the Congo, Now, the fact that Moise has this German linkage, you don't think that Berlin is going to watch what is going on in Congo just with, looking at it that way. Now, but I just want to pick on what the good brigadier was trying to build. The question of statism, the issue of Congo, and you asked, is it the entire Congo? Because to us, what is most crucial to us is the East. The East. Because of its proximity
to our border,
But as well, the centrality, and that is the state. One of the few things I have agreed with our government policies, and I think we need to mobilize, and probably the good brigadier, that's the other thing. You already pointed out we cannot just give up. What else do we need to do? How else do we look outside that box? As Tolit, I begin to think that we need to take the stature of the big boy. Because Uganda is a big boy in the region, and it needs to rise up to that mantle. Not only for selfish reasons, but also to stabilize the region so that the rest of Africa can benefit from it. Because you see, he used the metaphor of the thief. We cannot continue going back to the West. No. We must fix our problems. One, it is cheaper.
Correct.
Two, nobody understands what is going on around us more than ourselves. For instance, the issue of M23. One time you hosted me here, and I told you that the issue of M23 is an issue of citizenship. And you cannot try, that you can't wish away anybody. The history of conflicts will tell you that conflicts that border identity are intractable. They never end.
Okay.
Until you sort it out politically. So it's not a military issue.
No.
One thing I can assure you, of course, is that Congo's problems will not end within the duration of this show. What is the
I like that word.
What is the framework that is available to African leaders, especially the East African community, in dealing with this latest setback?
Personally, I celebrated when DRC joined the EAC. I was very excited. I remember the following day after they had admitted DRC, we had a function where the head of state was the chief guest. And I took the chance of being the MC to congratulate him.
You took our job, General.
No, I am older than you at the job.
I agree.
Yes. I saluted the president.
Yes.
Because I knew he was very, very much the architect.
That's right.
Not only for economic reasons, but for geostrategic interests, for security interests. You imagine if we were together from the Atlantic Ocean, the Indian Ocean.
That would be lovely.
You are a power block no one can ignore. So in international politics, you have already secured your position. That can't be ignored.
That's right.
Number one. Number two, look at the trade. You know, we survived the meltdown of 2008, 2009 because of regional trade. We did not feel the impact because of trade with South Sudan, with the DRC, with Kenya, with Rwanda. So this was going to be strengthened even more. You have your goods now going up to Matadi. Therefore, that would provide a framework to deal with the political questions. In fact, you cease having this identity issue because now the people in North and South Kivu who are Rwandese speaking or Kinyarwanda speakers are already at home because they have neighbors in Uganda and Rwanda and Burundi that they understand each other, they trade with each other, they move across the borders at free will. So they will not feel squeezed and therefore demand for recognition. But like Dr. Tolit was telling you, an identity conflict is never solved militarily. We are victims of the colonial partition of Africa.
That's right.
Now, it would be foolish of us to actually utilize this crime method on Africa and use it to segregate others. For me, I'm calling it a crime.
Yes.
So you are safer listening to each other and deal with this matter amicably. Now, the absence of the state in Eastern DRC
Very quickly.
creates a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum, you like it or not. It's like I tell people, if you are spiritually starved, the devil has space in you.
It has a playing field.
It has a playing field. So we must bite hard and deal with these questions squarely. So the forum was EAC, that's where I was starting from, the starting point, using the regional security architecture according to AU. Two, the African Union, but it's bedeviled with other challenges. You have absentee presidents on this continent. The man is head of state, but he rules from elsewhere.
Actually, again, very quickly, just in less than a minute. Yeah, I want to add, and Brigadier Kulayigye, I'm so excited about this, and I really think this conversation, we need to take it. The president has taken a bold step. The president now needs to be supported by the bureaucrats. And you see, at the end of the day, he's a lone player. And why we seem to see that this thing is clogged at the top and not cascading down. That's the East Africa community has a big challenge. By the way, if the guys in the East Africa community don't do their work well, the East Africa community will go back where it was in 1978. Because, you see, where is the rest of the East Africans, the ordinary East African? And I will tell you that a starting point, especially for Uganda, let me start with education. Why would National Council, knowing, understanding what is going on in the region, continue to remain rigid? We already have 2 million refugees here. Refugees come with a huge opportunity. I was in King's College London. I have seen the contribution. The biggest debate now, you see, the issue of immigrants has become a big issue. But even the foreign powers know what diversity contributes. Why can't we harmonize, some of these certificates and syllabus and allow people in the Congo, for instance, the young people, sit the Ugandan P7 exam, sit O-level exam, because that is how you integrate. Our parliament, the kind of policies we are passing, are they looking at the East Africa region or they are inward He was, he's an honorable member.
Thank you,
so
Dr.
This
Tolit,
is where we need to move
for throwing the
and
challenge.
that is why I was saying we're not proactive.
Okay, thank you for throwing the challenge onto the leaders within the region. I hope they can take that blueprint, improve it, polish it, so that we can come up with the best possible solution to some of the problems that the African continent grapples with, including the insecurity and the conflict question in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We hope we have done our part in enlightening you on how to begin.